Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast today with Jacob Magerdan.
Hoppy.
And welcome back to some more baseball coverage. Of course, if you are coming from the American League video, this is the National League video. If you're watching this one first, check out the American League video. Both will be on the channel. We'll review every division, talk about who we think will win each division, and then all the way down to last in the division. Then obviously check back in on the channel for a shorter video where we'll just talk about awards and then playoffs, who we think goes on the deep run, who wins the World Series. We'll talk about that in another video, but we're going to dive right into this here today. Obviously, starting out with the National League West, like we did with the American League, starting on the West side. Starting off with the worst team, I think this is a pretty easy one to pick. I think we'll both agree on this one. Going to be the Colorado Rockies. You look at this lineup, just top to bottom, not a very good lineup. There's a few players on here that are very interesting. I think Hunter Goodman is a phenomenal player. I think that he's one of those guys that if he makes it to the end of that contract with Colorado, he probably ends up somewhere else being a pretty good catcher for somebody else. But just unfortunately, he's playing with the Rockies, a team that probably won't have a very good season. Could see some crazy power numbers out of this guy, though. So watch out for him as a really big time power hitter. And Hunter Goodman, maybe a 30, 40 home run season from another catcher. Really interesting today to see all these catchers that are hitting so well. Love the Willie Castro addition for the Rockies. I think that was a really good signing. It's a player that can add depth and value at a lot of different positions. Right now, they have him listed at third base, but you know Willie Castro's the super utility man. He can play everywhere. And I like the trade for Jake McCarthy. It's a guy that Arizona just couldn't use. Still young, still 28 years old, has the potential to play every day for them. And there's a lot of interesting guys in this lineup, so hopefully things pan out for them. But again, I don't expect a good season. Coming down to this rotation, again, props to the Rockies. They actually did something this offseason. We saw a few of these not so good teams spend some money and try to get better. They added Michael Lorenzen, Jose Quintana, and Tomoyaku Sogano. That's not a bad offseason. Adding three different pitchers that can bring you value. Again, the ERAs are going to be skyrocketing because of the ballpark that they're playing in. But overall, I don't think the rotation is as bad as it was last year. Kyle Freeland is actually a pretty solid pitcher. I think it just sucks he has to pitch in Colorado because of all places, that's the worst stadium to have to pitch in. So again, I think that they'll probably be a pretty bad team, but there is some interesting pieces and a few things that can help them win some more games than they did last year. Looking down at this pen, again, a pretty weak spot on this team. Jimmy Herget is a solid reliever in the pen. Started out with Cincinnati, and then Victor Vodnik started out with Atlanta. So our two favorite teams both have representation on this team. And then you see a guy that's very interesting for them, and Chase Dollander. This guy was expected to be a flame-throwing starting pitcher and just kind of flamed out. And so now he is in the bullpen. Could expect him to maybe start a few games this year at some point. I think he's still got high upside. But again, overall, Chris Bryant, one of the worst contracts of all time. Unfortunately, that happened, and he's going to be out again. But this team is just not very good. This could be the worst team in baseball this year. Just not a lot of pieces that are really all that valuable going into this season. Hoppy, diving into number five in the West, I know you're going to be sitting here with the same team. Your thoughts on the Rockies?
The Rockies, very, very good stadium to play in. I think it's fun to watch games in those type of stadiums, especially that one year they went overseas for that game. It'd be great to watch some power bats on this team. Britton Doyle, he's a candidate to win a Gold Glove out
Yeah.
there in center
Yep.
field. He's very good at defense, but I'm just not too excited about anybody on this team. Jake McCarthy, you mentioned him. I've never heard of him. Maybe I'll know his name after this season. Who's to tell? And then as far as their pitchers go, they're not really that bad. The Rockies don't need anybody to go out there and win Cy Young. It's never happened before. They just need some guys to stay under, five ERA. And a five ERA in Colorado is like about a
Yeah.
four ERA
Yeah.
anywhere else. So I don't really want to put the pressure on the pitchers' backs. They're not expected to win anyways with this team working behind them. I think this is a good year for this pitching staff to just go out there, see what you got. Don't let the season be a waste. Learn what you can learn about these players in the year and try to improve.
Yeah, and I think it'll be fun to see if they have any young prospects come up because, again, look at the age of this starting pitching staff 33, 34, 37, 36, and 30. So they're not banking on any of these guys being long-term options. And so maybe we'll get some prospect call-ups or something later on in the year. But again, a team that should be down at the bottom of the league this year. Moving on to my number four here. Going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this might be surprising for some people. Again, I think this division is really good. I think there's three teams in here that can make the playoffs. I think there's four teams that can compete. This would still be a team that can compete. My concern is if he has a hamate bone injury, and so he's expected to maybe miss some time, just like some of the other guys that have that same injury, and so that's a big loss for them. If Corbin Carroll is unable to play, that is taking a big name out of the lineup and hurting this team. Again, Ketel Marte, phenomenal. Easily the best second baseman in baseball right now. Switch hitter that brings MVP level value for this team. And then Geraldo Perdomo is a phenomenal shortstop. He broke out last year and had an awesome season, one of the better seasons. He was top five in MVP voting. Think about that. Geraldo Perdomo is a really fun piece. And those three guys are all really, really good. And then Gabriel Moreno is also a solid catcher, has a good pop, has some good barrel up percentage. But you look at the rest of this lineup, and I have concerns. I don't think top to bottom that they're very good. Nolan Arenado, of course, if it was Nolan Arenado a few years ago, maybe you're getting more value out of him. But again, right now he doesn't have the bat that he used to have. Had a little bit better season last year, bounced back a little bit offensively, so maybe he gets in here and has a good year. But I just don't expect much from that lineup, and that concerns me after those top three guys. You go down to this rotation. Of course, there's some question marks here as well. Zach Gallen, of course, coming off arguably the worst season of his career, did not pitch very well last year, but I think he's still got a lot of upside. We just saw this guy be a really good pitcher a few years ago. Ryan Nelson, solid. Eduardo Rodriguez, of course, coming over back in a couple years ago, and they thought that was a big addition. Also hasn't performed at the top level. And then, of course, you're relying on two guys at the bottom of this rotation that are huge question marks. That's Michael Soroka, former Atlanta Brave, who was a Cy Young candidate, then tore his Achilles twice, so he missed a ton of baseball. Came back and worked his way through the bullpen and got back to being a starter. I hope he succeeds. I really do. He's a good player, a good guy. So I hope he does well, but I don't expect a lot out of him. And then Brandon Pfaadt is unbelievably different every day he pitches. You could see seven shutout innings or 8 runs in 3 innings. So just don't love the rotation as much as I don't love the back end of that lineup. And then the bullpen. There's some question marks in here as well. Jonathan Loziga is a very good pitcher. Expect him to have a good season, but I have a lot of question marks across the pen. Ryan Thompson could be really good for them. Paul Sewald, of course, if he can bounce back, but man, that season last year was just so bad that I have a lot of question marks. And overall, I think the injuries here are just piling up on this team as well. Look at all the injuries. 10 players starting the season on the injured reserve, a few of which that may not return. Of course, you're going to see Lourdes Gurriel right here had that ACL tear. Don't expect him to play very much this year. Corbin Burns coming off the Tommy John in June, so maybe they get him back late season, but at that point, you're probably out of the playoff race. And then Merrill Kelly, who they just signed back, is already having back issues. And then you see the big name in the pen and AJ Puck, unavailable due to a Tommy John surgery as well. It's just a ton of things that hit this team at the wrong time, and I just don't see them being very good this year. The injuries will pile up, and I think the top end of the bullpen or the top end of the rotation in Gallen and Nelson potentially could be good, and I like the top end of the lineup as well. But overall, don't think this is going to be a very good team this year. Maybe finish under 500. I think there's potential, but the injuries are going to hold them back. Hoppy, who you got at number 4 in this division?
I'm going to go ahead and select the Padres here at number 4. Just looking at this team, it's a lot of big names that I'm just not too big on anymore. Manny Machado, I don't think he's ever going to be what he once was. The only bat I really like to come out and do really better than expected this year is Laureano. He's getting a little older, but he kind of showed some signs of
Mhm.
improvement last year, so I'm expecting him to surprise some people. But outside that, Tatis is a decent player. I don't think he's got the consistency to his game yet to really show out 2 years in a row. He's going to be good in the outfield.
Yeah,
But top to bottom, this batting order, I just don't really get excited about any of them. It's a lot of has-beens, in my opinion.
yeah,
Xander Bogaerts, can he still be good? Yeah, but I just don't. I'm not betting on it this year, is what I'm trying to say. And then you look at the pen. You got some good names. Bueller, he's had some good seasons in the past. Getting a little bit older though. They're not projecting them to do that good. I'm looking at their projections now. Where this team could come and bite me in the butt is in that bullpen. This bullpen is absolutely amazing. They have
yeah.
three bullpen arms. Maury Hone, you see him ranked 43rd. I think he could be the best one out of all three of them. He did absolutely amazing last year. And then Mason Miller, I'm assuming coming over from Oakland this
Yeah,
season.
yeah. Traded midseason
Absolutely.
last year and was like he didn't get touched. He didn't get hit in the Padres uniform. I mean, he had like 50 consecutive batters where he struck out 39 of them. So, yeah, this dude just doesn't get hit.
You look at that and it makes it a close call. I think that there's a lot of actual similarities between this team and the Diamondbacks team. It's just some of the older players on the Diamondbacks team I like more. Ketel Marte, you could say the same thing about him as you do about Manny Machado. You could say, oh, he's going to fall off this year. I don't expect him to be what he has been. It's just not the feeling I have. I'm not a huge Manny Machado fan. That might be blurring my
Yeah.
vision, but this team just doesn't have a star player to me outside of a bullpen arm and a star bullpen arm. It's just not going to do for you what a star batter or a star starting pitcher will do. So that's why I have them at fourth.
Yep, and I'm gonna roll right into it and say I have him third. I think that was pretty obvious that these two teams were going to be fighting out for second and or third and fourth potentially. Again, there's another team in the mix, but we all know who's first in this division. We'll get to them in a minute. Looking at the lineup again, I agree with you that there really isn't a standout superstar unless Tatis can repeat his success. And since he did the PEDs, that whole issue came up. He has never returned to that level of batting, but he has been better. He's been developing and becoming a better hitter. So maybe I'm putting a little bit more stock in the fact that he's only 27. There's a lot of room for him to still grow and become a better player. And of course, the outfield that he plays is unreal. He is a platinum glove level defender, arguably the best right fielder in baseball when it comes to his defense. And then Jackson Merrill at center field. I guess that's a guy I'm more higher on than you were talking about there. With I think he can be a really good player. I think he's a really good defensive player, but also I think he can end up being a better bat than he has been. And Machado, I am not high on him either. Like you said, I don't think he's going to be a superstar once again. But I think if he's a 780 OPS guy, then there's just more names in this lineup, more guys that could have higher potential than what is in that Arizona lineup. I don't love anything after the top three for Arizona, whereas maybe all the way down to seven here, I have guys that I can rely on, even a Gavin Sheets, who had an incredible year last year for the Padres. So just a little bit more for me overall with the lineup, but I agree. The top end talent is nothing like a Ketel Marte or a Corbin Carroll when he returns. So that definitely makes a difference. And then in this rotation, like you said, question marks all over it for sure. Nick Pivetta just had a breakout year at 32 years old, and he was probably a top 15 pitcher in the sport. If he does that again, I think that this rotation could be really good. Michael King is a great player as well, but I do agree with you that this pen is disgusting. They lost Robert Suarez, who was one of their better relievers, and it still has three top end superstar relievers. Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, both guys that can set you up to finish games. But to me, what can change this team is if Mason Miller can close out and be a superstar like he looked like he was in the WBC. He was unhittable. They literally could not touch him. He has a streak going since September where he hasn't given up a single run since September of last year. That was through the tournament, through the playoffs, through the rest of the regular season, and he had struck out basically 80% of the batters he faced. This guy's a freak on the mound. He's throwing 103 miles an hour, and then he has a slider that averages out a swing and miss more than any other slider in the sport. So that scares me for the potential that he has for the rest of the league. I think he can be that good, and I think that maybe makes this Padres bullpen so good that they win games even when their starting pitching isn't, as good as the other teams in this division. You look down at the injuries. Of course, there's a lot of names down here that can play a part on this team this season. Joe Musgrove, he's coming back from Tommy John, which he had 2 years ago, so he will return this season. Unfortunately, Yu Darvish did just retire because of the elbow surgery he had, so that's very unfortunate. Loved him as a pitcher, great career, but he won't be on this team. And then Griffin Cannon, that's a ruptured Achilles tendon. Doubt we see him this year, but if he returns, he was actually running a pretty good season with the New York Mets last year. So if we get him back at some point, those could really help out that starting pitching. And then you don't have to throw a Herman Marquez or a Walker Buehler. I think that those guys returning make this team just a little bit better than the Diamondbacks. And again, I like the overall depth of the team more, but it's a very close conversation between those two teams. Moving on to number three here. Who do you have?
I'll be picking the Arizona Diamondback. I'm still a fan of this team from back 2 years ago when they made that postseason run. Huge Ketel Marte fan. He can really do a lot of stuff. I call him mini Mookie Betts. He can do it. He can really do it all. And then I was honestly unaware that Lourdes Gurriel was not going to be coming back. That's going to really hurt them a lot, not having him come back. It's really going to be a toss up still with all those injuries that I was unaware of to whether or not I would have still kept this team at third. But I still believe in their top end players. I've been a fan of Geraldo Perdomo since before he popped off. He was going really good, in my opinion, for a switch hitter 2 years ago, and he was under the radar. Then last year, he kind of finally got on everybody's radar. Uh, don't love Pavin Smith at the DH, but I think this team will be just good enough come trade deadline to want to try to win. I don't think they got a roster where they're going to give up. Neither do the Padres, though. So it should be a tight race between these two teams. Think it'll come down to which side can bat a little bit better. The pitching for the Padres, I might would give them the edge with that bullpen as far as total pitching goes, but it's ultimately going to be so close in that aspect. I think that whichever bats can get hotter can win it, and I just like the bats on this team, maybe as a fan more.
Yeah.
So I'm picking with my heart, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Again, those three guys, Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo, all very, very good players and guys that can compete for an MVP. So it makes sense to rely on the top end of that batting lineup there. Moving on to number two for me, that is going to be the San Francisco Giants. Obviously, I know Hoppy is going to agree with me here because you can't possibly have the other team on the list at two. Jung-Hoo Lee, really popular pick to have a bounce back year. I think he showed some signs of progression last year. And he struggles a lot in the outfield, so they have moved him over to right field, and they signed Harrison Bader to play center field to try to change that defense. That should help them a lot as well. And that ballpark is not easy to play in sometimes. That deep corner, of course, results in a lot of triples, and Jung-Hoo Lee was bad at giving those up, but I do like his bat. I like the ability to get on base and set up Matt Chapman and Rafi Devers and Elliot Ramos, who, of course, is also a really good player and had a breakout year last year. And then you have Luis Arraez behind all those guys that can drive in runs because he puts his bat on the ball no matter how good or bad he is when it comes to his power or his pop or what he does in the field, he will put the bat on the ball. He will put the ball in play, and he usually can drive in runs due to that. So I think that's a really good top five in this lineup. And then Willy Adames, man, if he breaks back out and becomes Milwaukee Brewer Willy Adames, this lineup could be unbelievable. Harrison Bader had a good year last year, and Patrick Bailey is not a bad hitting catcher in his own right, but he's one of the best defenders in the entire sport. That is arguably the best defender behind the dish. So a really, really good defensive team. If they can fix the issues with Jung-Hoo Lee and Wright and get this team going, I think that there's a lot of potential with the lineup and the guys in the field. But what really makes me pick this team over the other ones is this rotation. Logan Webb is arguably the most reliable starting pitcher in baseball. He pitches every year. He throws his full limit of innings. He's going to win you 15 to 18 games every single season. He's going to have a 3.1 ERA. He's going to be very, very consistent. He's constantly a all-star level guy. And then Robbie Ray, I think that there's a lot of potential for him to be a great player. Again, not his best year, but he had a really good start to the season. And then Tyler Mahle, I think he can be really good for this team. So I think there's a lot of potential in that starting rotation, and they have an actual ace, which a lot of these other teams do not have. And then you go down to this pen, and this is kind of where I'm left up for some concerns. I don't think that the pen is unbelievable. I think that Ryan Walker is a solid arm for sure. Jose Butto is a very good arm to come over from the Mets. But after that, there is some big question marks. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that look at how many injuries they have in this bullpen. Six pitchers in the bullpen that are currently injured. And a lot of those guys are big time names. Randy Rodriguez had an unbelievable start to the season last year before having that Tommy John. We will not see him this entire season. So that is a big loss for this team. And again, all these injuries pile up big time. Concerns me that one of these two teams behind them could possibly catch them. But I really love this lineup. I really love this starting pitching. I think that this team can get on the right track and win a lot of games early in the season. And I just trust the rotation and, like I said, the lineup more than I do the others. So overall, I think they finished second. Hoppy, moving over to you. Who you got number two?
I'm going to take the same team as you, the San Francisco Giants. I really do like this team top to bottom. Devers is, we're talking 2 years ago. We're saying Devers might be the best third baseman in baseball. People really wrote him off after he had a slow start to last year. He's still a good batter.
Yeah.
He can still bat the baseball. Luis Ariz is one of the most disrespected superstars in MLB history. And yes, he was a superstar for a few years there. When you're putting the bat on the ball like he was putting the bat on the ball, he was doing what he did better than anyone else in baseball. That takes pitches out of the pitcher. And I know that everyone wants to have doubles and homers and OPS numbers nowadays, but you can't really put into numbers how much a mental strain it is on a pitcher to go through a 7, 8, 9 pitch at bat against a guy who just fouls everything
Yeah,
off,
he don't strike out.
never strikes out. If he would have played 20 years ago, he would have been one of the
Oh,
talked
he'd
about
been
as one of the
loved.
best
Yeah,
players in
he'd have been loved.
baseball.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just think the disrespect is went a little bit too far the other way on that, and just all around, there's guys top to bottom on this team that you can trust. I mean, as far as being better than the Diamondbacks and Padres, I just like the batting lineup better. And then you've already talked; they've got Logan Webb, a true ace
Yeah.
pitcher who's done it for several years, a household name for baseball fans, and that's just something that these other two teams don't have. The pen is maybe even worse than the Padres, who
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
said is I mean maybe even worse than the Diamondbacks pin. But I think the consistency throughout this whole lineup's really going to push them over the edge and get them that second spot uh, in the conference.
Yeah, yeah, I fully agree with you there on the. I think that rotation, the trust that you have in Logan Webb, I think he's one of the more underrated starters as well. I don't think people outside of the sport of baseball that love watching baseball pay much attention to Logan Webb. He's just not an exciting guy, but he is a constant threat to go out there and give you 7 shutout innings. He's very good. Moving on to number one in this division, how much time do we need to spend here? Not very much. This team is absolutely loaded. If they don't win a World Series, it's an upset. Whoever beats them, it's an upset. This lineup from top to bottom is the best lineup in baseball. You talk about the 9 hitter being the one guy in the lineup that you're like, he's not that good. Well, he's a top 10 prospect in their system, so they're hoping he steps up and becomes a good player. If you didn't know, the Dodgers do pretty good at developing players. So who knows if that guy steps up and becomes a good player for them as well. They still have Miguel Rojas on this team, and they added Santiago Espinal, who that's a great depth piece. It's an unbelievable depth piece. You look at this lineup again, top to bottom. It goes All Star. Actually, let's say MVP, All Star, All Star, All Star, All Star, former All Star, potential All Star, potential All Star. That's how good this lineup is. Shohei Ohtani is going to be an MVP frontrunner again this season. He is one of the best batters in baseball, right behind Aaron Judge. I think he's second. Tucker, they didn't even need to add that level of player to this lineup to have arguably the best. They did. He's going to be an incredible player. Mookie Betts, if he bounces back, has the ability to be one of the best hitters in the sport. Freddie Freeman is arguably still the best first baseman in the sport this late in his career. Obviously, Vladdy Guerrero stepping up and becoming who he has become is very important to that debate. But Freddie Freeman is super clutch in the playoffs. He hits every single time it matters, and that's just the kind of guy he has become in his career. Will Smith, one of the best catchers in the sport, and then Max Muncy, man, he can tap into the real power and find that attribute that he has. That's a 6 hole hitter that a lot of guys would be happy with being their four for the power stroke. So love this lineup. Think it's unbelievable. Don't know how you beat this team when you come in there and you just got to have an ace that's just dealing to beat this lineup. And then you roll on into this starting rotation, which is arguably the other unbelievable part of this team, and that is Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is arguably a top 3 pitcher in the sport. He is one of the best in the National League. He's certainly going to be right there behind Paul Skeens and other guys to be a contender for that award. Tyler Glasnow, if he's healthy, can be a Cy Young candidate. When he is healthy, he looks unbelievable. But there is that huge question mark for him. Roki Sasaki, I don't know about this. I don't think he's going to end up in this rotation for very long. When they get some guys back and healthy, I think he'll slide into that pen because he was really good out of the bullpen in the playoffs, but the starting has really been a problem for him. Emmett Sheehan, of course, a young pitcher that has looked very good in his role. And then Shohei Ohtani. When he is back on the mound, he was dominating teams last year on the mound. He was unbelievable. He was coming out and looking like the Shohei Ohtani that we all know he can be on the mound. If he's a 3 ERA guy with a 900 OPS, he's got the MVP locked up before the season even starts. So it's unbelievable to see this rotation and the potential there, especially if you get Roki out of that rotation and add in one of these guys down here like a Blake Snell that's currently listed as an injured player. I think he's going to be back for this too, and then that rotation becomes the best in baseball. You move into this bullpen. That was the issue with this Dodgers team last year. Their bullpen was actually kind of bad. They had a lot of issues with their bullpen. They had guys that were injured and they didn't get the best performances. Well, What they do, they went out and added Edwin Diaz, who is arguably one of the top three closers in the entire sport. So now they have a closer that is electric and can get you out of the ninth inning without giving up a run. They also have Tanner Scott, who 2 years ago was one of the best lefty bullpen arms in the entire sport and just had a bad year last year. And then Alex Vesia, who was incredible for this team and has been for quite a few years. You also have Blake Trinan in this pen, Ben Casparis. Overall, the pen is absolutely loaded. This team is so good. On paper, this should be the best team we maybe ever see on a field in the modern era of baseball. So it's loaded. Top to bottom, it is absolutely loaded. And they still have guys like Brusdar Gratterall, Bobby Miller, Evan Phillips, Brock Stewart, Gavin Stone that I didn't even mention. Those are five other guys that every other team would be happy to have. It's stupid how many good players they have on this team right now. It's unbelievably loaded. And if we see a lockout in baseball, it might be because the Dodgers are unbelievably loaded. That is all to say, Hoppy, who do you have as the number one team in the West?
This is the number one team in baseball right here.
Yeah,
You're looking at a team. You take off their best player, they're still the best
yeah,
lineup in
yeah.
baseball. You take off their two best players, they still might be the best lineup
They have a debate.
in baseball.
Yeah,
You take three of their best players away, they're still probably the best lineup in their division. It's just ridiculous how the rich keep getting richer. I never would have expected Kyle Tucker to go to the Dodgers in this offseason. I thought he was going to stick it out with the Cubs. I thought it was a really good team, especially if they could have added Bregman onto it. They would have definitely been the favorites to win their division.
yeah,
But there's a thing with baseball, and baseball fans love baseball. Basketball fans hate basketball. They love trash talking stuff all the time.
yeah,
If this was a basketball team, people would hate Kyle Tucker.
yeah,
But because the way the sport is, baseball players just love watching baseball, so they don't hate on people for joining teams as much. Just a crazy team to go up against. I mean,
yeah,
last year we watched the Blue Jays play almost perfect baseball. They still couldn't get it done. Then this team added Kyle Tucker. They added a bullpen arm.
yeah,
Uh, they're going through a few injuries. I don't know if Kiki Hernandez is going to come back,
yeah,
but when he does, or if he does, him and Tommy Edmond, there's two more bats you can use. Utility. Tommy Edmond can replace that Alex Freeland guy if he
yeah,
doesn't work out. Dalton Rushing is a young catcher who should be starting right
yeah.
now.
He should start
He
on
should be
most teams.
starting.
Yeah,
You want this guy to get reps right now, and he just can't do it. The team he got drafted to is just too rich. They need to give this dude Dalton Rushing a chance somewhere. And then I liked what you said about Andy Paez. I think his future is very bright. He's got the confidence starting out young. I don't know how you can be any more confident. There's no pressure on him to perform.
yeah.
That can sometimes make it easier for some people. I'm looking forward to seeing how well Andy Paez can play because I think it's sad for him to be in an eight hole.
He has two rings on his fingers in his first 2 years in the majors. I mean, it's
Made the
unbelievable.
final catch, didn't he, last year?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, this team is just it's broken. It's literally like going on your MLB The Show and building a super team, and you do it by adding all these different players. I mean, they did it in real life. They built a super team in real life. It's unbelievable. It's a video game type of roster, and if they don't win, it is an upset. Like I said, any other team winning a World Series is an upset. They have everything now. They added a literal top bullpen option. Edwin Diaz is maybe the best in the sport and they added that, and they didn't even need it. They won without him. So it's injuries is the only thing that could really ruin a team, and I'm never going to prey on injuries on anybody. So it's scary. It's scary. You got to really show up and play your best baseball to have any kind of chance against a team like the Dodgers. We will talk about them a little bit later on when we talk about our playoffs and our postseason and how things will go then. But we're going to roll on in to what is a very controversial division this year, a division that has seemingly got much better on paper, and that is the National League Central division. Starting off in fifth place in the National League Central, this is also a team that could fight with the Rockies to be one of the worst teams in baseball this year, and that is the St. Louis Cardinals. This team, I will say, has one really fun thing and one really cool thing. Look at who drafted every one of their starting players. St. Louis, St. Louis, St. Louis. They have a full St. Louis Cardinals team. They built this team via drafting or signing players. So that's pretty cool. A lot of young guys, a lot of potential. This should be probably the youngest lineup in baseball this year. I mean, you look at the ages. They don't have a player over the age of 27. That's going to be really fun. There is a really bright future for Cardinals fans, but I'm sorry, this year's just not going to be very fun to watch. Starting from top to bottom, JJ Weatherholt is incredible. This guy is going to be really, really good really good player. Expect his bat to be hot to start the season, and he's a top 12 prospect in the sport. So you talked about earlier, when you go to the ballpark, you want to have something fun to watch. Cardinals fans have a great, fun player to watch in J.J. Weatherholt. Starting at shortstop for them, Mason Wynn, one of the best defenders in the sport. At only 24 years old, he's a speedster. He also brings you a good contact bat. I think there's a lot of room for him to jump up and become a much better player. So I really expect a lot from these two guys, and Weatherholt and Mason Wynn holding down the inside of that infield. And then you roll down this lineup, and there's a couple names here that could bring some pop and have a good bat. And Burleson, Ivan Herrera, Nolan Gorman, and Jordan Walker. There's a lot of question marks after that. You don't know what you're going to get out of a Victor Scott in center field. He's going to be a good defender, but he probably won't put the bat on the ball. The bench is obviously very weak, and you have a lot of question marks there. Then you move down into the starting rotation, and obviously it's not going to be a very good one. I do like the addition of Dustin May. I think that was a really solid player to get into that rotation. Can give you a little potential future as well. He's only 28 years old. He's shown some really bright flashes. And then Matthew Libator. I really like Matthew Libator. I think he can kind of pop off and become a good player. We've always been waiting on him to do it. When's he going to do it? When's Libator going to break out? And so now he's over 2 years in the majors. Maybe it's his time to do so. Diving down into this pen, it really doesn't get much worse. Riley O'Brien, JoJo Romero, both solid pitchers. And then you could maybe get something out of Justin Brunley and Ryan Stanek. But overall, again, I just think that this is going to be a pretty rough pin. All the Cardinals that they have drafted just playing. And there's really they've done nothing to get these guys. They've just drafted and signed players very well. But again, this team is going to be pretty bad this year. Hoppy, rolling on over to you. I think this is probably who you'll have at 5 as well.
I'm gonna have to have the Cardinals at 5, and I just got to go on a little rant. A lot of the so-called experts have the Reds finishing fifth in this division. I don't see how the Reds are going to be within 20 games of this team. I mean, the Reds have been a top 10 run scoring team in baseball for 2 years in a row now, and they're bringing back the same roster. And it's a young roster that should improve. And then you look at this team, and it's just not as good at on the batting side as the Reds.
No.
So what I want to look at when I see if they can be better than the Reds is if their pitching is better than the Reds, and if they had a really good pitching cast here, I could overlook the fact that the Reds are by far better in the position players. But this team just doesn't have the type of pitching talent that's making up for a gap that large on offense. And I think that they're almost a lock here for the fifth spot. I
No.
wouldn't pick any other team. I would struggle to place the other four in order because
Yeah.
they're so close. But this team just seems like a for sure bet at the bottom. I do like their young talent in Mason Wynn. He's very fun to watch. He's got a cannon of an
Yeah.
arm.
Yeah.
And J.J. Weatherholt, I look forward to seeing him. I know he's really young. I haven't seen too much of him yet. But he should do pretty well for him, and that's the main thing Cardinals fans should be looking for this year is just which one of these young guys do we want to keep on our team? Which one of these young guys do we want to maybe try to trade before their value drops off and they get older?
Yeah.
And if they can make the right decisions there, year or two down the road, they can compete again in this division.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. I think there's a lot of bright potential, a lot of really bright future, but this team is going to be the worst. And again, anybody saying they're not is crazy right now. Moving on here to number 4 in the National League Central Division, gonna have the Pittsburgh Pirates. Again, this lineup, they drastically improved it. I think that's something that Pirates fans have been begging for years, is please go out and get us some bats. Go give us a chance, especially once they got Paul Skeens in here, and he's dominant. He's one of the best pitchers in the sport. I think that they need to provide some run support for him. He's literally had Jacob deGrom level seasons. If you remember deGrom Cy Young when he went 10-10 and had a 2 ERA, it was 10-10 because his team was terrible. It's the same way that Paul Skeens' season looked last year. He was one of the best pitchers in the league, but he had a losing record for half the season because his team. So I'm glad they went out and spent some money, made some trades. Odell Cruz, of course, coming off one of the best WBC spring training runs. Really, really good start to the season for him. Hopefully he can get going for the Pirates in the leadoff. And then Brandon Lau, I think that was the biggest trade of the offseason for them. Go out and get a guy at second base that has been coveted by plenty of other teams in the American League and the National League. A guy that has been a trade rumored second baseman for as long as I can remember, and they finally go out and get him, and it brings in a really solid bat. And then, of course, you look down the list here. Brian Reynolds, can he return to what he once was? As a really good switch hitting bat. Ozuna, the best power bat that they could go out and get. Again, consistency there from him. He had a little bit of an injury last year, so kind of had a down year. But overall, I think when healthy, he could be really good for this lineup. And Ryan O'Hearn. If you remember when the Padres acquired Ryan O'Hearn, he was really good for them the rest of the year. And so I think that's a good addition and just really added a lot of depth to this lineup. And they're not relying on bad players to make a big moment for them. They really have some decent bats in the lineup now. You roll down into this rotation, and this really is the talking point about the Pittsburgh Pirates. The rotation is very, very good. This is a team that could have the best rotation in this entire division. Paul Skeens is going to be more than likely the favorite to run it back as the Cy Young in the National League. He is a very, very good pitcher. He has only looked better. He went to the WBC and only gave up one run against an All-American Dominican lineup that had all-stars at every position, and so he looked dominant there. He's just so, so good. Mitch Keller is a very good second pitcher for now, but again, you get Jared Jones back, pitcher to be named down here. Some point in this season, they are expecting him to return. That's another flamethrower. That's another 100-mile-an-hour guy that can kick it up and give you really good outings. I think that they get him late in the season, make that push, that they could fight for this division. Another cool thing with Pittsburgh is this entire staff was built by the Pirates. These are all Pittsburgh selected players that have come up through their system, developed, and then got the long-term contract like Mitch Keller did to stay with them. So it's very important to have that continuity in the system. Bubba Chandler, of course, the big name prospect that is coming up and should be a superstar in this league. I think he can make this team better. So a lot of good positive things there with that rotation. Again, arguably the best in the division. And then you go down to this bullpen. Gregory Soto was a phenomenal add in the offseason. A very, very good reliever coming out of that pen. One of the better lefty relievers. They grab him. They add him to Dennis Santana, who is a very good closer. Of course, they made that Bednar trade last year, so they had to have somebody fill the need of the closer role. And Dennis Santana did a pretty good job when he was called upon to do that. You look down through there, the rest of this bullpen, there is some question marks. Jose Urquidy has been a solid player. You see Hunter Barco there, a top organizational prospect, so they're going to hope for him to show out for him. But definitely the weaker part of this team is the bottom half of that lineup and then basically the bottom half of this pen. But I really love the rotation, and I really love Dennis Santana and Gregory Soto being able to close out games for you. But overall, still going to have this team finishing fourth in what will be a lot more competitive Central Division this year, in my opinion. Hoppy, who are you going to have going into fourth in this division?
I'm gonna have to pick the Milwaukee Brewers. Reason why I'm picking this team is there's a little bit of a thing in the NL Central where every year three teams are fighting it out for that second place spot, and sometimes it's four teams all fighting within a few games at the end of the year. And it's going to come down to the end of the year. I think the Pirates are going to have the slight edge with Paul Skeens trying to win those last few games. You look at this roster here; they've been together for a little while. A little bit of pitching concerns, but as you mentioned earlier, this team just does well with pitchers. Something about the way they coach them or the way that the catchers call the games. They're really good at making young pitchers good right off the bat. So I think that that's really not a big concern with this team. Look at some of their bats. Christian Yelich, can he have a season like he did last year? We don't really know. I like Andrew Vaughn quite a bit. And of course, Churio, guy you mentioned when you talked about the team, very young, very promising future. I just think this division's going to come down to a few games at the end. And call it wishful thinking. I'm hoping the Brewers go fourth in this division right now.
Yeah, and again, a lot of question marks with the Brewers. Again, like you said, that rotation, there really isn't a set in stone ace other than Brandon Woodruff, and he has his own injury concerns. I'll talk about them when I do get to them in just a second. Moving on to number three for me, is going to be the Cincinnati Reds. I think that this Reds team is a really solid team. I think that they showed they can make the playoffs last year. They got in there. They didn't have the best showing they wanted to have in the playoffs, but they were playing a team that's a super team. I think they did get a little bit better this offseason, especially adding Eugenio Suarez back to the lineup. I think that's a big addition. Get some pop. You know that's going to play in that ballpark. He is going to hit home runs. It is the case that any of those big power hitters get in that ballpark. Does well for them. I love TJ Friedl. I think he's one of the better leadoff hitters in the sport because of his speed, his ability to steal bags, but also just his high average. He's going to get on base a lot. Matt McLain, they need a huge bounce back season from him. Last year was just about as bad as it gets. So if you get that version of Matt McLain that you saw 2 years ago, then there's a really nice top of the lineup because Ellie De La Cruz, No matter what he does with his strikeout numbers, he's going to be a great player. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's going to get on base and make a difference, and that's a big part of the team for the Reds. They just need him to lower that strikeout number, and this guy could be a superstar. He could become an MVP type of player. Sal Stewart, of course, big prospect, top 35 in all of baseball, coming in, immediately gives them a new power bat that they can slot in right there with Aowenio, and then you've got a pretty good lineup. I mean, from 1 to 6 as guys you can really trust in the lineup, and a guy like Will Benson against righties is very good. You flip flop and play someone else against lefties, and again, this lineup overall doesn't look all that bad, and there's some really good defenders here. I think that's something that kind of flies under the radar. Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, and then Key Brian Hayes holding down your infield on defense is incredible. That is some of the best defenders in the sport, so I think that'll play well for them there. You go down into this rotation. There's obviously a question mark because Hunter Green, unfortunately, has had another injury. It just seems to be that he can't stay healthy, and it's very unfortunate because, again, he has Cy Young potential when he's on the field. You see a bone chip was just removed, probably going to hold him out for quite some time. Said he was feeling like a almost a sharp stabbing pain in his elbow. You never want to hear that. That's a really bad thing to hear. So they do lose their ace for what could be a big part of the season. But you still look at this rotation, it's not bad. Andrew Abbott, of course, didn't have the same season last year as the year before, but still has a lot of potential. Lodolo is a very good lefty pitcher. And again, your two best pitchers in your rotation are lefties. That's a positive because a lot of teams struggle with finding that top end lefty. I love the addition of Brady Singer last year. I think he probably had a better than expected type of season. He was a high three, low four ERA guy, and to get him for Jonathan India was a good swap for a team that desperately needed some starting pitching. And then you're looking at the two young kids, and that's Rhett Lauder and that's Chase Burns. Burns, of course, had the elbow issues last year, had to move into the bullpen, but he has unbelievable stuff. It's just, can he stay healthy? For Rhett Lauder, it's a different story. He has really untapped potential. He is a top 102 guy in baseball, number 3 in the organization, and a starting pitcher that they're going to have to rely on this year because, again, they do have some weaknesses with the depth in the starting pitching market. But overall, that could be a very good rotation if the young guys perform. You dive into this bullpen. This, to me, is kind of the weak spot of this team. Emilio Pagan had a great year last year. They're going to hope for him to be that closer, that able to close out games role again like he had last year. But the concerns for me come more so in the guys getting him there. I don't see anyone there that I just trust unbelievably well to go in and close out a game or get them to Emilio Pagan. Santillan had some struggles last year. Pierce Johnson was with the Braves, and he was really, really good at times, and he was really bad at times. But one of the big things with Pierce Johnson is he has a home run problem. And other than Colorado, there probably is a worse park you could be in than the Reds. So I do have concerns for his home run issues that he gives up a lot of homers, and that could not play in that park. But Brock Burke was a really nice addition via a trade from the Angels. Get you a nice lefty in the pen because that's another big problem with this Reds bullpen. They don't have very many lefties that they can really rely on late in the game. And so I think that that's a good addition that gives them a chance to have him in the pen at the beginning of the year. And then when they maybe get a Caleb Ferguson back from injury or a Sam Moller or Brandon Williamson steps up, they could take over that role. But overall, again, I think the Reds can compete for a playoff position this year. I actually think the lineup will be better than it was last year, but I have concerns with that bullpen and potentially these young guys in the starting rotation because of just injury history, and you never know what you're going to get out of a rookie. Hop moving into number 3 for you in the Central Division. Who are you going to have there?
I'm gonna go ahead and put the Pittsburgh Pirates at 3. And just to start this conversation, I want to say I've seen some very, very interesting hot takes or predictions saying that there's a Pirates win this division. A lot of people are on that. I think it's a little bit Paul Skeens hype central
Yeah, yeah.
there, and this team could win the division based off the back of Paul Skeens. I was actually going to throw a wild prediction out there and say Paul Skeens might win every game he plays this year. Has that ever happened before?
I don't know. I would assume there's been some pitcher in the history of baseball that's had just an unreal season, maybe back in the old days whenever teams were just loaded. But I don't see it happening with that Pirates lineup, just not being able to score enough runs sometimes. But dude, I mean, he's that good. So who knows what happens?
But yeah, I'm with you on that. O'Neal Cruz has some of the highest potential rank in baseball, but he's like Ellie De La
Yep,
Cruz,
yep.
but he's older and he's a few years behind on the potential being unlocked. He definitely has that potential to be a great bat, but Brian Reynolds is really their only real old consistent guy. It'll be interesting to see what your guy Ozuna can do for them. Can he have a bounce back year? He kind of struggled last year with a couple injuries, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering correctly, and outside of Paul Skeens, I just don't really like this team as much as my team that I root for. I don't see the potential there. It could be because lack of knowledge, but I just see the Cincinnati Reds as a better ball club than this team, so that's why I put them at the 3 spot.
Yeah, and again, I think that's completely fair. I think again, the two, three, four in this division, like you said before, can be super close to each other. There's differences about each team that's better. I think the Pirates clearly have the better rotation amongst the three teams. I think the Brewers probably have the more reliable organization amongst the three
I
teams.
think well-rounded wise, the Brewers are best.
Right, and then the Reds, you look more so at that lineup, the strength of what they could have if some of those guys tap into the potential. Again, what is Eugenio Suarez going to look like in a Red stadium once again, where he dominates with homers and Ellie's potential, of course. But this should be a very fun division, and that hasn't been something we've been able to say. My number two team in the division is the Milwaukee Brewers. I just trust the organization. Like I just said, I think that this organization is the best in the division. I think they have consistently produced winning teams no matter what has happened to the team before the season starts. I'm going to trust that rotation because of the coaching. I'm not going to trust it because of the players in it. That's very few teams you can say that about, that you can trust the rotation because of the coaching. But if you get down and look at it, there is some question marks for sure. Brandon Woodruff, like I said before, your only set in stone veteran starter that has been there, done that for a long time with this team. If he's healthy, he's really, really good. He has health concerns. Then you look at the young guys. Kyle Harrison, via trade from Boston. Brandon Sproat, via trade from the New York Mets. That's how they got him, was via the Freddie Peralta trade that they made. Jacob Mizorowski had some unbelievable flashes last year, made the All-Star game after only pitching in 5 games. So there's a lot of potential, untapped potential. And if those guys are all great, this team is going to be very, very good because you go up and you look at this lineup and there's a lot of reliable players. Jackson Choria, one of the better defenders in baseball in center field, but also brings you an unbelievable bat with consistency. Bryce Terang, this guy might have been the best hitter from the United States in the WBC, consistently getting on base, had a 400 plus average. Trust him that he will be one of the better second basemen when it comes to just hitting. Contreras, behind, a couple of the top end guys like a Cal Raleigh. That's one of the best hitting catchers in all of the sport. He's also developed into a phenomenal catcher behind the dish because that's just what the Brewers do. That hitting and the pitching and the catching, they always do better when they get into this system. And then you're looking at a couple guys that have just who are we gonna get out of them? What are we gonna get? Christian Yelich. What is he gonna be the Christian Yelich of old? Is he gonna be the Christian Yelich of 3 years ago where he was struggling a little bit? I think the consistency from him can make this lineup better. But overall, just top to bottom, there's a lot of guys in this lineup you can rely on. And again, like I said, it's the Brewers pitching staff. They are unbelievable. They will coach these guys into being superstars. They do it all the time. I dive down into this bullpen. This is a bullpen I trust. They find bullpen arms and they pull them out of nowhere. A lot of these guys they've created. Abner Uribe was on nobody's list 3 years ago. He was on nobody's list. Nobody knew who he was. They turned him into one of the best relievers in the sport. Trevor McGill comes in, untapped potential, gets traded over from Minnesota, becomes one of the best relievers in the sport. They have just the unbelievable potential to create relievers, and I think that they're going to do that yet again. Uribe, McGill, Koenig, Aaron Ashby, Angel Zerpa, if you saw him pitch in the World Baseball Classic, was unbelievable. This bullpen right here is probably the best in the division. If they need to get out of games, they have 5 guys they can rely on to close it out for them. And then you go down to the injuries, and this is a big one for them. When Quinn Priester returns, that can be a big difference maker for that rotation. Gives them another arm that they can rely on, or maybe he even goes into that pin and becomes a long relief arm. But overall, just a lot of guys I trust. I trust the organization, and I think the bullpen is loaded. I think the lineup is consistent. That's why I'm going to have them finishing second. If they had a better ace, if they had Freddie Peralta still, I might have them beating the Cubs and finishing first. But this division is going to be a very fun contest, and I have the Brewers finishing second. Hoppy, who do you have at number two here?
This is where we're going to talk about my favorite team, Cincinnati Reds. I think that this team has a very, very overlooked lineup. Top to bottom, this is one of the more well-rounded lineups in all of MLB. You see Spencer Steer down there on the bench. He's not going to be on the bench. He led us in home runs 2 years ago. I would say most games Will Benson will be on the bench. There will be a few games where Jose Trevino will play, and we just got a lot of pieces we can go to on the bench. Let's go down the lineup though here. TJ Friedel, I would not want any other leadoff hitter other than Kyle Schwarber. He's an absolute tool. He's good at defense. He's blocking down center field for us, and he hits the ball for average like crazy. Not much pop in that bat. Mac McClain, a big question mark on the lineup there. He's the real question mark there. But as far as it goes, the other two weaker spots on our team is Will Benson and Will Novelli Marte. Play good, and guess what? When Will Benson's facing lefties, which he struggles against, Steer's going to be playing, and when Novelli Marte isn't playing well, Steer's going to be playing. Trevino is a great defensive catcher off the bench, and like you mentioned, Ke'Bryan Hayes we added last year. And talking about the biggest weakness in pitching, I actually like our starting pitchers quite a bit. Singer was a great add. Can Chase Burns and Louder step up this year is a big question. And then as far as the bullpen goes, something that gives me a little bit of confidence is I don't think our bullpen can perform any worse than they did last year. And we made the playoffs last year. I think this division is an injury to the Phillies or Giants away from having three wild card or two wild card teams coming out of it. I just wanted to predict that the Reds would make the playoffs 2 years in a row because that hasn't happened in my knowledge since I've been watching them. Like in 2007, we've made the playoffs, I think in 2010 and then last year. That was the only two times we made it. So I do think this is the type of roster with some young guys that have played together for a while and really, having Spencer Steer on your bench just really tells how powerful this lineup is with hitting because Steer is a potential 25 home run,
Yeah.
70 RBI guy. He's really that good.
Yeah, and again, like you said, the pen it was rough last year. It was really bad. I actually didn't really like when they traded Rodgers out of that pen. I think that was a move that was kind of questionable with how rough the pen was performing at the time. I just wish they had added more. That's really the thing holding me back from the pen. Is just I wish they'd added more there late in games. If the lineup is performing, they could even still blow a lead if that pen doesn't perform well. The only thing holding me back from this team, again, I like you said, these untapped potential starting pitchers could both be awesome, and the lineup does have a really good start to bottom lineup, especially in that division where it's probably one of the stronger lineups in the division. Rolling into number one here, going to be what we both have at number one. It's pretty easily the best overall roster in the division. That is the Chicago Cubs. This is a team that. From top to bottom, their lineup is the best in the division. Michael Busch, a very good leadoff hitter, batting with an 815 OPS. If you're projecting that out of Michael Busch, what in the heck are you going to get out of the rest of the guys? Alex Bregman is really, really good. Had an awesome season last year. Ian Happ is a very good hitter. Pete Crow Armstrong, if he taps into the first half potential, was an MVP candidate because of his bat. He was a 900 OPS guy, hitting with power, and of course the speed he has is probably the best in baseball, or one of the best. Nico Horner is a phenomenal second baseman. Also brings a very good bat to the plate with him. They're relying on Moises Ballesteros, a top 100 prospect in the sport, to come in, and he's known for his bat. A very good hitter as well. So just again, top to bottom, this lineup is unbelievable. When you have Dansby Swanson as your seven or your nine hitter, if that's the case, Dansby Swanson's an above average hitter. I mean, he's not an amazing hitter, but he hits right around that average mark, and he brings you some pop potential. So overall, this lineup is disgusting. The defense is going to be incredible. And then you go down and you look at the starting pitching, and it's something else you can pretty much rely on with this team. Matthew Boyd coming off what was his best season in Major League Baseball at 35 years old. So really good performance from him. Shota Imanaga is consistently a 4 ERA or below guy. Cade Horton has that potential to be a 4 ERA below guy. Really young. Again, another guy that was a first round pick for them. Jamison Tyone, goodness, when you get the good version of Jamison Tyone, is he good? And then the big addition they made in the offseason, that's trading for Edward Cabrera, who is a nightmare when he is on. This kid could be a sub 3.5 ERA guy if he taps into the potential. Again, it's there. It's very, very good. And again, I think that this rotation. Again, the Pirates probably have the best rotation. This is the second best in the division, and you're looking at the lineup being the best in the division. So that's a big boost for them over a lot of the other guys. That's not even mentioning they have Seiya Suzuki, who's not even in that lineup. He's a top four batter on this team. So when you get him back from injury, it only gets better. So that lineup is incredible. That rotation is pretty good, and this bullpen is awesome. Daniel Palencia was lights out unbelievable in the WBC. Team USA could not touch him on the mound. He's throwing 100. He's going to be their closer, and he is disgusting. They back that up with Phil Maton, Hunter Harvey, Caleb Tilbar, Jacob Webb, Hobney Milner. I mean, this pen is loaded with talent. This is probably, like I said, with that Brewers pen, this pen is that good as well. The bullpen levels better than the rest of the division, those two teams. So I think that's what makes this team so much better is they just have arguably the best rotation, arguably the best starting lineup and easily compared with the Brewers the best bullpen. So overall, think this team pretty easily runs away with this division. It'll be a big question for who's number two, who's going to finish second. But the Chicago Cubs, man, they are loaded, and this is a contender in baseball. I think that they will give the Dodgers a run for their money. I don't think they're as good as that team. They're not as complete as that team, but from top to bottom, I really like this team a lot. Hoppy moving to number one in the division. I know you got the same thing. Talk about the Cubs.
I just want to copy your answer here. I do think this is the best team in the division, but I'm just not going to say they're going to run away with it completely. I think this is a division where four teams think they can get it done and win the division. I think they're going to be competing. I think there's going to be very few sweeps when these teams meet each other, and I think the other teams can keep it close. But top to bottom, they do have the best batting lineup, even a little bit better than the Reds, I would say. In Hap, one of the better left field bats in the game. I believe he used to play second base. Nico Horner playing second base now, also great bat. I'm interested to see how Pete Crow will do at the plate this year. But even if he does below average by a little bit at the plate, he's going to make that up on offense with his base running, and he's going to be one of the best defenders in the whole MLB.
Yeah.
So there, you're going to get something out of him either way. And then a guy like Dansby Swanson wrapping around to Michael Bush is really good. He's not a superstar, but
No.
he's a guy that has done it for years and years and years. He plays defense and he knows how to hit at the plate. He's not going to, go 0 for 20
Yeah.
very often throughout a stretch. And I really like this team going away from, hey, Pete Crow's fast and he's our best player. Let's put him in the one slot. I like teams kind of using some guys that aren't that fast in the one spot, so I do like that about them. You mentioned the Reds having two good lefty pitchers. This team has that as well. Shada Imanaga and Matthew Boyd. If the Reds had Hunter Green, that would change it up a little bit. But then you go to the pen, Caleb Thilbar, Hobie Milner.
Yeah.
These guys could close games.
Yeah.
They
This
can
pen.
close games, and they're not going to have to, I guess, according to this Fangraphs thing. They're not going to even have to close. They're going to be setup guys. So I definitely do think the Cubs have the best chance to win this division. And like I said, there's a chance three teams could come out of this division and make the playoffs. That's how I think it'll be a tight race.
Yeah, again, this pen is just so gross, man. Like you said, if there's an injury to even two guys in the pen, you've got other guys you can rely on, and that's not even to mention the injuries down here. Again, you have the potential of gaining back a Justin Steele this season, the potential of getting a Shelby Miller or a Porter Hodge in that bullpen. It just loaded. This team is loaded with their pitching. This is a really, really good pitching staff that gives them a really good chance to win the division, of course. Rolling into the National League East, the worst team in this division, I don't think it's really debatable right now. That's going to be the Washington Nationals. A lot of it is just the fact that they are selling. They are selling intentionally. They have looked to trade C.J. Abrams. They tried to trade Keibert Ruiz. They tried to trade their pitchers. They got rid of a couple good ones there. So they're selling. This is a selling team. They're just not ready to be really competitive in the division. I think this is probably one of those teams that's down there at the bottom of the league with the Rockies and maybe the Cardinals. They have a good player in C.J. Abrams leading it off. They have a great player in left field in James Wood. But after that, this lineup is really not very good. This is one of the worst lineups in baseball. A lot of names that you're not going to know. A lot of guys that are kind of just untapped potential, and maybe they figure it out. But it just isn't a good lineup. Top to bottom, it is probably one of the worst lineups in all of Major League Baseball. C.J. Abrams and James Wood obviously carry that for them. Do a lot of things right, but again, just don't trust the rest of it. You look down at this rotation, also a lot of question marks. Not a very good rotation. I do like the addition of Zach Littell. I think Miles Mikolas has a chance to be good. Kate Savali, what are you going to get out of him? He's a younger guy that's still got some untapped potential potentially with being just under 28 years old. But that rotation is also not very good. It's a bottom of the heap rotation. And then you look at the bullpen, and it doesn't get much better down there. That bullpen is also pretty rough. There's a couple nice names in here: Ken Waldichuk, Gus Varlin, guys that could be potential guys that make a difference for the team. Clayton Beater, who they assume will be the closer at this point in time. This is just not a good team. It isn't a very good team. Josiah Gray, maybe when he returns, can help out that starting rotation a little bit. Does have some potential there. But overall, this is probably a 50-60 win team, and I guarantee you they finish dead last in the National League East. Hoppy, rolling on over to you to number five. I assume you got the same team there.
It's going to be the same team for the Nationals this year, and It's not a whole lot to talk about with this squad, so I'm going to keep it quick. The most exciting point in the season this year for the Nationals will be when James Wood gets a 99 over card on MLB The Show 26.
Yeah.
That's when these fans are really going to get out of their seats. They're going to be P5 in that card right away and just role playing like he has anybody to play with on his team. Because this guy is really having a Hall of Fame start to his career, only 23 years old, already showing this pop. You look at this guy, I'm really going to be interested to see how high can his WAR get this year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. He's not the best defender, if I'm correct
Yeah.
on that,
He's
but
okay defender. Yeah.
he's definitely got the pop in the bat, though. We'll see how many home runs he can hit. Don't know right off the bat how many he hit last year, but I'd say a good goal to set for James Wood this year would be 30 home
Yeah.
runs. If he can get 30 home runs, that'll be great. And if he can get anything more than that, that'll really be a positive sign for the future, maybe as a trade piece or even to build around.
Yeah, and again, like you said, not a lot to talk about here. Unfortunately, it's just going to be a rough year for the Washington Nationals. Moving on over into the Miami Marlins at number 4 for me. This is a lineup that it does have a couple pieces that are pretty good. Xavier Edwards, I'm a fan of his at second base. Augustine Ramirez, it was a very good young hitting catcher last year. Had a great season. He was just in a tough division where a guy was just a little bit better hitter than him at the catcher position. Obviously, we'll talk about him in just a minute. Otto Lopez is a nice piece at shortstop. And then I really love the addition of Owen Casey coming over from the Chicago Cubs in that trade for Edward Cabrera. I think he's incredible. I think this is way too low for him. It's a top 62 guy in baseball. I think he will definitely have a chance to be one of the better hitters in this lineup. So a couple nice pieces in the lineup. Some guys that are fun to watch. They don't have a James Wood level guy, but they have a better overall lineup in my personal opinion. Then you roll down into starting pitching, and this is really where the Marlins have done well. Sandy Alcantara, what version of him do you get? Do you get the really good second half Sandy last year, or the bad first half, or the year before that where he was terrible? I don't know what version you get, but I think Sandy has untapped potential. He won a Cy Young, so he's very good. And then you're looking at some youth in Yuri Perez, who is a very, very solid guy, especially at 23 years old. Max Meyer has potential. Chris Paddock, a solid guy that has pitched in the league for quite some time. Overall, not too bad of a starting rotation. I think it's much better than that Nationals, and that's why I have them ahead of them. And then the bullpen. There is some names in here that are pretty solid. Pete Fairbanks was a really nice addition. He could actually be a very good closer. He could be one of the better closers in baseball this year. So I think that was a really solid addition by them. You look down at some of the other relief pitchers. Anthony Bender's had nice runs in his career. I don't think Andrew Nardi's a bad player. So overall, a pretty solid bullpen behind what is a decent starting rotation. Big question for them is, can we get some of our guys back from injury? When Kyle Stowers returns, then they have a conversation about James Wood. Kyle Stowers is that good. Kyle Stowers can absolutely hit 30 bombs as well and have an 800 OPS. So when they get Kyle Stowers back in this lineup, again, they have a player just on the same level of James Wood, much older, much more experience. And so overall, I think the lineup's clearly better. I think the rotation's better. I think the bullpen's better. I just don't see how they finish behind the Washington Nationals, but they aren't as good as the teams ahead of them. That's why I have them finishing fourth. Hoppy, who you got fourth here in this division?
I feel like these bottom two teams were kind of really obvious, so I'm going to stick with the Marlins with you. Really not a good baseball team, in my opinion, especially compared to the three teams ahead of them. It's really a pretty big gap in my mind. I really liked what you said about their pitching. I think Yuri Perez is really going to have a good long career in
Yeah,
MLB, barring any injuries. He's a really fun player to watch. Throws with some heat. Sandy Alcantara, like you said, he was at one point one of the highest
yeah,
projected pitchers in baseball, and he's just kind of fell off since then. But he's still a major league pitcher, something a little bit better than what the Nationals bring to
yeah,
you. And then as far as the rotation goes, I really like what you said about Kyle Stowers. He's going to bring them
yeah,
some pop to this lineup, and all around, not exciting names on this team, but like you said, they don't have the top end talent of James Wood, but just a little bit, not like they're jumping out exciting, but
yeah.
just a little bit better all around than the Washington Nationals. And with also better pitching, I think it's a pretty easy call to have them in a fourth spot.
Yep. Moving on to number 3 for me, it's going to be the New York Mets. And the reason they're number 3 for me is the Mets will Mets. I think that's a pretty common theme with the Mets. They always figure out a way to Mets, and that is have a good enough roster to make the playoffs, but only win 81 games like they did last year. I think it just happens to them too frequently for me to be able to rely on them to be a top end team in the division. They do this constantly where they look like on paper a playoff team and don't end up there. The lineup is really good. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, arguably the best left fielder as they have him listed now, has played right, of course, in his career as well. One of the best outfielders in the sport, one of the best bats in the sport. Bo Bichette, I don't think you can have him playing shortstop for you. I think he's a really bad one, but when you move him over to third or maybe second base, there's some more potential there. They're going to have him listed at third for now. I know he struggled a little bit there early on in the season, but his bat is really good. It will make up for how bad defensively he can be. Jorge Polanco, an older name, a switch hitter that they added that first base side to just give him some depth. But I still don't think this lineup is better than last year. You lost Pete Alonso. I think that Pete Alonso behind Juan Soto and at points during the season was better than Juan Soto. He was an MVP candidate. You lose that and you don't really replace him with a superstar bat. You replaced him with Lou Bob and Luis Robert Jr. He had potential at one point 2 or 3 years ago. He's been abysmal. He's been abysmal in a Chicago White Sox jersey for a few years now. Maybe it was the situation he was in. Maybe he didn't enjoy that, or maybe it was just the fact that he's 29 years old, had a ton of injuries, and it's starting to pile up on him. Then the bottom half of this lineup, I don't have a lot of faith in it. Brett Beatty has not shown me anything positive. Marcus Semien has been horrible the last few years, but again, maybe you get him out of a bad situation. Maybe he does better, but Texas wasn't a horrible spot to be in. Carson Bench here could have a lot of potential. This is a fun name that if they get him going, maybe this lineup does improve and get better. And then Francisco Alvarez, a catcher that 2 years ago looked unbelievable. He was hitting bombs left and right, and then just had a bad year last year. Struck out way too much. So if he could fix that, there is some potential there that he could be a good hitting catcher once again. But overall, the top of the lineup is incredible. Frankie, Juan Soto, Bo Bichette, really, really solid hitters. And then you get towards the bottom, and there's just a lot of question marks there. I don't know what you're going to get out of a lot of those guys later on in their career. The rotation. Last year was a big problem down the second half of the season. They didn't have an ace. They didn't have a guy. They've got one now. Freddie Peralta is incredible. This is one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. A very, very good ace, a number one, somebody who can rely on. When they go out on the mound, they're going to deal for you. He's a top 15, top 20 guy in the sport. There's more question marks behind him. David Peterson, obviously coming off what was a very good year last year, but he hadn't done that a lot in his career. Clay Holmes had a pretty rough second half of the season, but was incredible in the first half of the year. He was a closer. He wasn't a starting pitcher, and now you're moving him to that role. He just ran out of gas. He didn't have it all year last year. And then Kodai Senga. I think the big question with him is what version of Kodai Senga do you get? Last year's version was really bad, and the year before that was a Cy Young candidate. So he could be really good. He could be really bad. And then Nolan McLean, man, this kid is awesome. He has ace stuff. He's a top three organizational rank or top three in all baseball rank starting pitcher. You're going to see him making big starts for this team early on in the season. And then you dive into this bullpen. There's a really good top half. Devin Williams, if he's the good version of Devin Williams, is awesome. And Luke Weaver. I really love Luke Weaver. I think that was a great signing from them. Brooks Shlaley is also pretty good. Problem is, the bottom half of this bullpen is not very good. I think there's a lot of question marks there, and I think that the injuries are hurting them a ton. You're not going to have Tyler McGill for the whole season due to that Tommy John surgery. You're not going to have Reed Garrett for the whole season due to Tommy John, and you're also going to miss out on Daniel Nunez because of Tommy John. So they lost three of their pitchers via Tommy John surgery. I think that really hurts the rotation. It really hurts the depth in the bullpen, and they need a guy like AJ Minter to come back fast because I think that's the weakness of this team. And overall, love the top half of the lineup. Really like the rotation, but the pen and the bottom half of the lineup to me leave a lot of question marks. And again, I just think the Mets will met. Moving on to your number three here, Hoppy, in the National League East. Who do you got?
I'm gonna have the Atlanta Braves going three here. As
Yep.
you can see, this team is absolutely stacked. They got a great lineup. Chris Sale, a potential Cy Young candidate. He's won it a couple times now. He's very consistent, very, very consistent. Uh, Outside of him, I know Bryce Elder and Grant Holmes. They're pretty decent pitchers, but they're no all-star level pitchers. And then they got two question marks down there with Lopez and Suarez. You probably know a lot more on this team than me, so I'll go ahead and let you talk about them later on. But I want to talk a little bit about their batters, and this is where you see how deep this division is as well. The NL is very well-rounded in comparison to the AL, in my opinion. But you got Ronald Acuna Jr. When he plays, he's one of the best players in baseball. But the question is will he stay healthy? He's had a lot of injury concerns. Drake Baldwin just won the Rookie of the Year. That's something you love to see on a team this good. Matt Olson had a wonderful year 2 years ago. Could come back to do that. Played good last year, but He's got a lot of pop in that bat, a lot of potential. Austin Riley, one of my favorite players in all baseball. He is just consistent. He's been consistent. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. People will just not even know his name, and they'll be like, "Oh, Austin Riley, who's this guy? He's in the Hall of Fame." He was supposed to be a pitcher coming out, and then Ozzy Albies, still a decent little consistent guy. I really wish this team would have held on to Acuna, not Acuna, but Ozuna. Really liked Ozuna on this squad. Gave them a little bit of potential with the walks and homers. But overall, I really do like this team. They could come out and really win this division possibly. But I'm going to have them in third for right now. Really struggled whether to put them third or second though.
Yeah, and moving on to my number two, obviously I'll stay right here. Gonna have the Atlanta Braves number two. Again, I think the Mets will Met, so I think that's the big thing for me there. But also, I like our lineup way better than theirs. I think top to bottom, you have a player that's just as good, if not better, than anybody in that Mets lineup in Ronald Acuna Jr. Again, a guy that when he plays, he's an MVP candidate. He has had the injury concerns, but the years after his tears, luckily, have been the years where he's been dominant. He come back from an ACL surgery, had a bit of a interesting season where he's just barely an 800 OPS guy. Then he wins the MVP, tears his ACL yet again, comes back and was a 900 OPS guy last year. I think he's primed to win the MVP yet again this year. Again, I think it's going to be tough with the guy you're competing with in this division, who just so happens to be, or in the National League, it just so happens to be the best in baseball when it comes to just well-roundedness. But I think Acuna has the potential to do that. I think he's the best leadoff hitter in the sport right now because of his stolen bag potential as well. They're going to have him running more this year because his knees are healthy. And then Drake Baldwin. I said earlier, I was talking about young hitting catchers. This is the best in baseball when it comes to the young hitting catchers. Baldwin is only going to be 25 to start the season and is arguably the third or fourth best hitting catcher in baseball. So he can do that. He can be a high level hitter. And then on top of that, you have Sean Murphy, who's going to be able to play and DH for him when he comes back from his injury. I think that's a big difference as you got that guy that's going to make the pitchers better as well. Matt Olson, I'm expecting a huge season for Matt Olson. This is a guy that broke the Braves home run record just 2 years ago and still had a really good year last year. People don't realize how good he was last year. Still an 800 OPS guy. He still hit a ton of bombs. He just didn't hit 50. I think he's going to hit 50 again. I think he's going to return to that level of hitting. I think they did a good job with the staff. They moved things around more than any team in this division. They changed their staff up a ton. They went out and got top end assistant coaches, changed the manager, and I think that's setting up well for what this team could do coming into the season. Austin Riley, you said he's one of your favorites. That is my favorite player. There's an Austin Riley rookie card signed by Austin Riley. He's going to
Well,
be a comeback type player. I absolutely think that he is that level of player. You're right. 2 years ago and a year before that as well, he finished top seven in MVP back-to-back seasons. This guy is that good. He is one of the best third basemen in baseball. He had a down year last year, but he also had a situation that happened to him that was pretty bad. His pitching or his hitting coach that he had practiced with forever, he passed away in a pretty rough accident. So that was something that messed with Austin Riley. It changed the way he was playing baseball. He didn't have that guy to go to. He didn't have someone that could help him out when he was in a slump. So now that they've changed the staff around and got guys for him and others, I think that's huge. Mike Yastrzemski was an unbelievably underappreciated ad in the offseason. Mike Yastrzemski hits righties better than most people think he does. This is a guy that can be an 800 OPS guy against righties. He also is second in home runs for the Braves in spring training. This cat is killing the ball right now. I think he's a big difference maker in the outfield, and he's going to be a better defender than Jurickson Profar ever was in left field, so that'll help us out there as well. Second base, Ozzy Albies. He's one of those guys that needs a bounce back season, big time. If he does not bounce back, it's obviously a little bit more of a hole in the lineup there because there are some question marks with Ozzy Albies, and if he has the bounce back season, this 1 through 6 is arguably the best division or the best lineup in the division. Michael Harris, end of the year, Michael Harris was an OPS guy over 800. Beginning of the year, Michael Harris was a 500 OPS guy. So, what version of him are you going to get? You know you're getting Gold Glove defense in the outfield, even if you don't get the incredible bat. So he brings value there. And then the big question mark for this team was Jurickson Profar was scheduled to be the DH, and that would have no doubt made this lineup the best lineup in the division. Problem is Jurickson Profar's a cheater, and he wanted to cheat yet again. You now have to rely on Dominic Smith and Kyle Farmer. Those are going to be the two guys that you play in that DH spot until you get Sean Murphy back from his injury. Dominic Smith has really been good against righties in his career in the majors. He was good last year against righties, above a 750 OPS. So you play him against righties, you play Kyle Farmer against lefties, and that sets yourself up for a decent DH spot. I think Eli White is a very underrated player off our bench as well. He was the MVP of the Speedway Classic. Hoppy, I know you remember that. That game we tried to go to with y'all for the first time, and then it didn't go well. Rained it out. We go back again, and Eli White comes out there and hits 2 homers in the Speedway Classic. So the guy is got some potential. And then Mauricio Dubon. This is a really underrated addition as well for the Braves. A guy that is a very, very good defender and has been crushing the ball in spring training. I think that he can be a good bat for this team. But the big thing for this roster is look at the injuries. Look at the injured reserve. They have two starting level players in Sean Murphy and Ha-Seong Kim, a guy that will be the starting shortstop when he returns in May. Sean Murphy is expected to return in May as well from the hip surgery. The starting rotation on our injured reserve may be better than our starting rotation that we have. That's how good this injured reserve is. These guys are all major league level guys. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach, probably not going to get him back till June. That's a big injury. AJ Smith-Shawver is coming back from a Tommy John surgery. Going to hope to have him back at some point this year. Spencer Strider, of course, starting the year on the injured reserve with an oblique strain. Should get him back sooner than later. That's more of a 2 to 3 week injury. And then Hurston Waldrop. They are saying that he can come back sooner than later as well. Had to have a bone spur removed. Very unfortunate, but it is good to try to keep the guy healthy. He is still really young, only 24. When all those guys, if all those guys come back, this team is loaded. The pitching staff will be one of the best in baseball. Problem is, you never know. The injuries, you have no idea. You can't predict it. Hence the reason why I don't think they can win this division right now. You look down, of course, at the bullpen. Daysbel Hernandez starting the year with inflammation. Joe Jimenez, supposed to be your guy, the setup guy. Unfortunately, had that arthroscopic knee surgery. Expecting to get him back at some point, but you just don't know. That's the big question mark with this roster is all these injuries, man. If these guys were healthy, I'd be picking them to win the division. I think they'd have the best team. Those are the question marks for sure. You go up, you look at the rotation. Like you said, Chris Sale is an MVP or a Cy Young candidate every single season he pitches. He does have some injury concerns. Luckily, last year's injury wasn't really a baseball injury. It was he dove for a baseball and cracked a rib. It wasn't like his arm was tearing apart again. He didn't have a hand problem, wrist problem, shoulder problem. So I expect a Cy Young level season again out of Chris Sale. And then Reynaldo Lopez, 2 years ago, was a 1.98 ERA guy. He was that good. Problem being, he missed the entire season last year. So you don't know what you're getting out of him. Grant Holmes had a very, very good spring. Luckily, that looks like he's settled in and can be our fourth or third starter. But the problem is the back end of this rotation. Bryce Elder and Jose Suarez are not good back end starters. They are not good. There is an issue there, and you're going to have to heavily rely on your bullpen to make starts or to finish games for you. Good thing is, the Braves have a pretty dominant bullpen. Raisel Iglesias and Robert Suarez, I would argue that's the best 1-2 punch to finish a game in all of baseball. That is a closer in Raisel Iglesias, who finished the year with a sub-2 ERA, and Robert Suarez had 40 saves last year. Those two guys are unbelievable. You put those two guys in the back of a bullpen, you can finish every single eighth and ninth inning with those two guys and feel comfortable with it. The rest of the pen is actually pretty solid as well. Dylan Lee, one of the best lefty relievers in baseball the last few years, very underrated. Tyler Kenley, once he come over to the Atlanta Braves, had a sub-1 ERA with the Braves. Then they had Joel Pyomps into this pen late in the offseason with a waiver claim from Milwaukee. Actually has been great in spring training and expect something out of him. But the big story is 20-year-old Didier Fuentes makes it out of spring. This is a top 100 prospect on Fangraphs. Number 1 in the organization last year, number 2 just behind J.R. Ritchie this year. This kid is really, really good. If you remember Spencer Strider, the year he came into the majors, this is the exact same role they gave him. He was a back end of the bullpen, long relief arm, so whenever one of those starters didn't have a good game, he come in and pitched. Didier Fuentes looks just like that. He just finished a spring training where he gave up one hit in his 4 outings in spring training. He also struck out 20 batters in those 4 outings. So the strikeout upside, nobody was touching him in spring. I think there's a lot of potential there, and that to me is another one of the names that can really help this team out early in the season and maybe make place starts over Bryce Elder or Jose Suarez if he figures it out in the majors. To me, all those things make this lineup good enough to be an 88-win team, a 90-win team if they can really strive for excellence. But the rotation is a big question mark, and that's what scares me. I think if we get these guys back, any of them, they will make that rotation better. And I think when they do come back, this team becomes the number 2 team in the division. Hoppy, rolling on over to you. Who do you have sitting at number 2?
I got the Philadelphia Phillies. And just one player on this team really sticks out to me, and that's Kyle Schwarber. This guy don't get no respect, man. He, in my opinion, you mentioned Shohei Ohtani being the best hitter in this division. We'll talk about who I think the best hitter is in the NL later, but I think this guy's number two. I think Kyle Schwarber is that good at the plate. He doesn't have the speed on the pads, but I don't care. I would have him leading off. He was the best leadoff hitter when he played leadoff. He takes walks. You see his batting average, you're like, man, that's not very good. He
Yeah,
takes walks.
yeah.
He hits homers. I see him up to bat, and I'm more confident than with Shohei up to bat in the playoffs. This dude is that good. Shohei is a better player due to his pitching and Schwarber not playing defense. But uh, don't love this lineup top to bottom, but they're a team that finds a way to get it done every year with some good pitching. And, Trey Turner getting older. He played pretty good last season. I'm not too confident he's going to be the same Trey Turner as last year, but he can still give you some definite needed help. And then you got guys like Bryce Harper. He's a good player in the MLB. JT Realmuto, one of the best defensive catchers. I like Bryson Stott a lot. Due to that, and obviously you have this team first, it was really a toss up between this team and the Braves for me. Health concerns due to the Braves was probably one of the major reasons. All right, let's get into this rotation here. I really like Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo, two lefties, which we've talked about over and over again in this NL video. All these NL teams have to seem to have two great lefties. And then Johan Duran is one of the best
Yep.
closers in the sport. You see him get at least 30 saves this year. That's 30 wins for the team. You can mark them down. Then you got Brad Keller. I like him quite a bit coming out of that pen as well. Jose Alvarado, another great lefty coming out of the pen. This team's just got left-handed pitching out the wazoo. And don't love their back end starters though, but I think if Zach Wheeler can come back, this team could definitely make some noise come playoff time and in this division. Seems like they're a team that's going to end up falling short in the playoffs every year due to either running into a better team that's stacked like the Dodgers or just getting beat in the playoffs. But this is a team a few years ago I was really rooting for in the playoffs, and I think that they can still be a heavy win team and make the playoffs again this year.
Yep, and obviously, like you said, I'm going to have the number one. I do not like the Phillies. I hate the Phillies, actually. This is one of my least favorite teams, if not my least favorite team in all of baseball. But I got to admit that the team is good and that they run this division right now. I don't think that they're going to give it away with all the health that they have. They don't have a ton of injuries to the top end guys other than Zach Wheeler. And so that health is a big key. Trey Turner, don't think he's leading off. Like you said, I think Kyle Schwarber is clearly one of the best leadoff guys because of his on base percentage and how well he does at getting on base. But Turner's going to be towards the top of that lineup for sure. Bryce Harper still very good. I think he'll probably end up having a very good season. But I think a lot of these guys are at the end of their runs, and I think that more than anything is what makes this so important for the Phillies. If the Phillies do not win this year, it's about over. All their guys are in their mid 30s, late 30s. Pitchers are all getting old. If you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? So I think that's one of the reasons why this team will do well as well. Alec Boehm had a better year last year. Bryson Stott has potential, and I love the addition of Adolis Garcia. I think that name, although he was terrible last year for the Texas Rangers, he's got some untapped potential. Brendan Marsh is still a very good outfielder, and JT Realmuto is one of the most consistent catchers in baseball history. He is repeatedly catching 140 games in a year for you, and he's still doing it at 35 years old. I think that's incredible for them. Justin Crawford, they absolutely need to step up. Johan Rojas is now done because he cheated just like Jurickson Profar did. Johan Rojas cheated, and he will miss about half the season in center field. So they're going to need the young prospect in Justin Crawford to step up for them. But overall, I think this lineup is very good. I don't think it's better than the Braves lineup. I think the Braves have a better lineup overall, but I think they have more consistency, and they don't have the injury concerns right now in that lineup. But the real thing that makes me pick this team is this starting rotation is disgusting. This starting rotation is unbelievably good. Christopher Sanchez finished runner-up last year in the National League Cy Young. Aaron Nola was dominant in the WBC, looked very good for Team Italy. And Jesus Luzardo was one of the best lefties in baseball last year, and he got hot and had an incredible end of the year. And then on top of all that, they're adding one of the best prospects in the sport, in Andrew Painter, to this rotation. It's a very, very good rotation. This is arguably the best in the division. I think that they will look like that the entire season. And then, man, when they add back Zach Wheeler, They have a 1 through 5 punch that is just so scary that you don't want to face. And I think that's what makes this team so good. You look down at this bullpen, Yohan Duran, Jose Alvarado, Brad Keller, like you said, and even I want to throw a name in there like Tanner Banks, a lefty that can give you some good consistency out of the pen as well. Just a lot of really high caliber pitchers coming out of that pen, and I think that's going to save them a lot at the end of the games because Duran and Alvarado can close games for you and be very, very good at it. I think that that's probably what the other best 1-2 punches in all of baseball is Alvarado to Duran. Of course, they didn't have Alvarado last year because he was juicing. He also used PEDs, so he missed the end of the season. So there's a question mark there. Maybe he isn't as good as he once was because maybe he was using PEDs, and that's what made him good. But who knows? We'll see what version of Jose Alvarado you get this season. But if he's pumping 100, he's going to be very good. Also, they will have Orion Kerkering added back into that bullpen at some point. Just another player that will make that team better. And then Johan Rojas will return halfway through the season and can boost that outfield. He just cannot play in the playoffs this season due to using PEDs before the season started. Overall, to me, the rotation is the best in the division. The pen has the potential to be the best in the division. And the lineup, the top end talent with Schwarber is unbelievable. I think they will take first place in this division. Hoppy, rolling over you at number one. You don't think the Mets are going to Met. Why do you think that?
That's just an easy answer to this question. The thing I wanted to bring up first is Juan Soto is going to retire with a higher WAR than almost all the players that are a little bit better than him. He's one of the most consistent players I've ever seen. Mentioned Schwarber taking walks. Juan Soto, and I'm a sucker for a guy. Maybe it's because I grew up watching Joey Votto. I'm a sucker for a guy who can stand there and really look at the umps and say, hey, I know this strike zone better than you know this strike zone. Don't swing at bad pitches. I've said it time and time again. Juan Soto in a down year is still a top five player, and I do think he is the best batter in this division. Shohei's going to have more success. He's going to win the MVP this year, but I just like a lot of players on this team. They have a lot of big names, and they're the biggest spenders in the division. And although you mentioned some of these players not performing to their best potential, I think even if they play to their median potential, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Bo Bichette is an incredible top three. They're going to give you some runs. I really like that you mentioned them adding Freddie Peralta earlier. That's a real ace added to their lineup. Clay Holmes is a good pitcher. I think Kodai Senga will come out there and be a MVP caliber pitcher once again at some point in his career. Devin Williams is a good pin arm to close games. And if we can go look and see how many injuries this team has, that's the biggest concern for me. I think that this team's biggest threat to winning the division is actually the Braves, not the Phillies, even though I have the Phillies ranked ahead of the Braves. The Braves, when healthy, are probably the best team in this division with Ronald Acuna having some up end potential where he can be better than Juan Soto in his best years. But even barring injury, in an average year, healthy, Juan Soto is going to perform better than Rack. Rack's got to get steals in a big year to have it. Juan Soto doesn't have the pop off the bat of Acuna, but he can still hit home runs. He walks like Kyle Schwarber, but he can bat 300. I think Juan Soto is just one of my favorite players of all time. I think Judge and Shohei Ohtani are better than them better than him at his peak. But when it comes to who's their best at their worst, Juan Soto is the guy you want to have. And due to that, and maybe me projecting a bounce back year for Bo Bichette, and on the high end of Luis Robert having another good year and Marcus Semien, I think this team has the highest up end potential of any team in this division other than the Braves, while also having less injury concerns than the Braves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like you said, they're healthier. And unfortunately, a lot of their injuries just can't come back. Three Tommy John surgeries, those guys are just done for the year no matter what. But you could get a guy
AJ
like
Minter
you
is the
could get a
only
guy
one that
like
can come
AJ
back.
Minter. If you get him back, that does make that pin better. To me, that's the weakness of this team. I think the Braves and the Phillies clearly have better pins, but you never know what you're going to get out of Devin Williams. Do you get 6 ERA Devin Williams from the Yankees last year, who was just horrible? If you get that, this bullpen could be terrible, but I don't think it will be. I think you get good Devin Williams. I think you get good Luke Weaver as well. And then that pen has at least a couple top end arms. The rotation is very good, like you said, with Peralta. And the lineup is awesome at the top of it. I think the bottom half you're really projecting. You're hoping a lot of those guys figure it out and do better than they have for the last few years. But there's definitely potential there for sure.
And everyone loves Francisco Alvarez. He's like the biggest Met guy ever. He's never been good, but
Yeah,
everyone loves him.
The Mets fans, if you ask one of my buddies, he will tell you that Francisco Alvarez is his favorite player. So they do love Frankie Alvarez, and he does have the potential. We saw the pop a few years ago; it just hasn't returned in the same sense. Obviously, that'll do it for the National League. You're looking at what do we have as our projections across the board. I got to finish the game here on my screen. I got to finish it with Acuna's name at the top of the board. I couldn't leave the Mets up there for too long. You've seen a little bit of my Mets hate and Phillies hate there, but. Obviously, I think that all these teams in this division are competitive. I think the Central will be more competitive this year than it was last, and I think the West has the potential to have some interesting teams. The Giants, who knows what we get out of them? I think the Dodgers clearly are the favorite though in the National League, and like I said when we talked about them, they are the favorite to win it all. It's an upset if they don't win it all with how loaded that roster is. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Hoppy, I'll give you the floor if you got anything else you want to add about the National League before we go make our video about awards and playoffs.
I just say go Cincinnati Reds, make the playoffs 2 years in a row. Ellie De La Cruz win the MVP. Andrew Abbott win the Cy Young. Hunter Green come back, finish runner up in the Cy Young
Yeah.
behind Andrew Abbott, and all that happens. Then we can beat the Dodgers come playoff time.
Yeah. Yes, if all that happens, you are sitting pretty. You have a chance. And of course, we'll be coming back to you quickly with a awards predictions. We'll go through all the awards, and then we'll give you our playoff slate and who we think will make a run, and then we'll maybe make our champion. We'll see what we think about that because it might be too easy to pick a champion at this point in time. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, comment, it helps the channel out a ton, and we'll see you guys when we see you guys. Peace.
Peace.